Stop. The Arcturian Sentinels have already detected a pressure system building in your field tonight. And what you are about to hear is not a general warning. It is a live transmission addressed to the exact pattern they are already tracking in you. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what warning signs are already active, what is pressing against your field right now, and what the Arcturian Sentinels already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation. What you have been calling a vague sense that something is off, that low-level apprehension when you look at the next 2 weeks, that chest tightness with no medical cause, that restlessness that arrives without a name, that jaw tension you wake up carrying without knowing why. None of that is random. It is not anxiety. It is not overthinking. It is the outer signal of a pressure system the Sentinels have already mapped, already measured, and are now alerting you to before it reaches the rupture threshold. You are not too early to this message. You are almost late. The pressure has been building. The signals have been repeating. And the only variable that converts a small recalibration into a visible disruption in your life is dismissal. The Sentinels do not issue this alert when it is too late to respond proportionally. They issue it precisely when the response window is still open, when the action required is still small, when a single act of honest acknowledgement tonight is enough to interrupt the trajectory. This is not a call to panic. It is a call to stop dismissing what your field has already been trying to show you. The algorithm did not create this moment, it only delivered it. What you call coincidence is often the first visible symptom of a pressure system that has been accumulating long before it becomes visible. The Arcturian Sentinels track these systems not because disruption is inevitable, but because dismissal is the only thing that makes it so. Like this transmission, if you know something has already started to press against your field, comment 777 if you feel the pressure has already begun. Subscribe to Arcturian Starseed warning if you are ready to recognize the signs before they escalate. And share this with someone who keeps calling the warnings coincidence. You were guided here because the warning is already active. The pressure did not begin tonight. That is the first thing the Sentinels want you to understand. What brought you to this transmission is not a new development. It is the accumulation of something that has been building in layers beneath the surface of your daily life, quietly loading the field, quietly stacking markers, quietly waiting for the moment your conscious attention would finally align with what your body and field have already been registering for weeks, possibly longer. Tonight is not the beginning. Tonight is the moment the signal became loud enough that dismissal required more effort than recognition. The field has been sending this transmission for a long time. Tonight is simply the first time you have been still enough to receive it. And that is significant because dismissal requires energy. It is not passive. Every time you felt something press against you and chose to call it stress, every time a strange repetition moved through your day and you labeled it coincidence, every time your chest tightened for reasons you could not explain, and you reached for a rational framework that almost fit but never quite settled, you were not resolving the signal. You were spending field energy to suppress it. You were building a structure of explanation over the top of something that was not asking to be explained. It was asking to be recognized. And the field does not have unlimited capacity for suppression. There is a threshold. There is a point where the weight of what you have been covering becomes heavier than the covering itself, where the pressure becomes louder than the explanation you have been placing over it. That point is not a crisis. It is not a collapse. It is a diagnostic opportunity. And the Sentinels are alerting you now because you are standing at that threshold, not past it. The window is still open. The cost of recognition tonight is still small. This is not about catastrophe. It is about what happens in the precise space between the first warning and the moment a small disruption becomes a visible rupture. That space has a shape. It has stages. It has a direction. And that space is where you are standing right now. That space is where the difference between recognition and dismissal becomes the single most consequential variable in your field. Because once the pressure crosses the threshold, the correction required is no longer small. It is no longer quiet. It is no longer something a single act of honest acknowledgement can interrupt. The Sentinels issue this alert precisely because you have not yet crossed that line. But the line is closer than you have been allowing yourself to know. The signs that something is pressing against a field do not usually announce themselves clearly. If they did, no one would dismiss them. They arrive in clusters of experience that each feel individually explainable, so you explain them individually, and the pattern remains invisible. You explain the unusual fatigue as poor sleep. You explain the sleep disruption as stress. You explain the stress as workload. You explain the workload as a difficult season. You explain the difficult season as temporary. And by the time you have constructed a full rational architecture around what you are feeling, the actual source of the pressure has continued to develop underneath that architecture, completely unaddressed, continuing to load the field while the surface remains covered in acceptable explanations. The architecture is not wrong in pieces. Each individual explanation may contain some truth. That is precisely what makes it effective at keeping the deeper pattern invisible. A lie that contains no truth is easy to see through, but a partial truth that functions as a complete explanation is harder to challenge, because when you press on it, it does not collapse. It simply redirects, and the pressure continues to build beneath it, while the conscious mind rests in the comfort of having answered the question. The Arcturian Sentinels do not track single symptoms. They track patterns. They watch the shape that multiple experiences form when held together, the underlying frequency connecting events that appear unrelated on the surface. And the pattern they have identified in the field conditions affecting viewers drawn to this transmission tonight is not a pattern of random difficulty. It is a pattern of ignored escalation, a pressure system that began small, that was absorbed into daily explanation, that has now reached a stage where the next layer of dismissal will push it past the threshold where easy correction is still available. What does this feel like from the inside? It feels like sustained low-level wrongness that you cannot fully locate, not a sharp pain you can point to, but a dull, persistent pressure that moves, that shifts, that settles into different parts of your body or your experience on different days, as if it is testing different points of entry. It feels like conversations that leave you more drained than their content should explain. Interactions that seem ordinary, but require more recovery than they should. It feels like hesitation before decisions that would normally feel natural, a strange friction in your own momentum, as if something is catching on the edge of every forward movement. It feels like a background frequency of unease that gets louder in the quiet hours, that arrives fully formed before you have fully woken, that sits in the chest or the jaw or the shoulders as a physical density that has no obvious medical origin and resists every attempt to breathe it away. It feels like the strange sensation that you are moving through your life slightly out of alignment with what the field around you is actually doing, as if you are one layer to the left of where you should be standing, close enough to your correct position that no one else can see the displacement, but far enough that everything requires slightly more effort than it should, and underneath all of it is a knowledge you keep bypassing, a recognition that something needs to be seen, that something is asking to be acknowledged, that the signs have been repeating not because the universe is threatening you, but because the field does not give up until it is heard. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary tension. It is the moment your system stops dismissing what has already begun. If this transmission put language around a pressure you have been carrying without explanation, the Arcturian interference log, 7 signs your frequency is compromised, was created for this exact stage. It is not another warning for the sake of fear. It is a direct guide for identifying whether the signs around you point to interference, escalation, compromised frequency, or a threshold you can no longer afford to misread. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first pattern the Sentinels identify in a compromised field is what they recognize as signal clustering. This is the experience of warnings arriving not as isolated events, but as grouped disturbances that share an underlying frequency even when their surface appearances differ entirely. You may have noticed this recently. A conversation that felt subtly destabilizing, followed within days by a situation that introduced unexpected friction, followed by a physical symptom that appeared without clear explanation, followed by a dream that carried a weight you could not describe, but did not fully dismiss when you woke from it. Each event, taken alone, feels manageable, explainable, even unremarkable. You could build a case for any one of them being ordinary. But the clustering itself is the signal. The Sentinels do not watch for loud, singular events. They watch for the grouping of smaller disturbances into a recognizable pressure pattern. The way individual notes become audible as a chord only when you stop listening to each one separately and let them sound together. What constitutes a cluster is not the size of the events, it is the frequency they share, the same underlying tone of wrongness, the same quality of pressure, the same sense that you are being pressed against from a direction you cannot fully identify. If 3 or 4 experiences in the span of 2 weeks all carry that same underlying quality of unease, the same feeling that something is pressing against the field, the same sense that you are moving through slightly thickened air, that is not coincidence. That is the first visible stage of interference becoming readable. The second pattern is false resolution. This is perhaps the most dangerous feature of a warning phase, because it does not feel dangerous. It feels like relief. There will be a moment in the middle of this kind of pressure where everything seems to settle. The friction stops, the tension eases, the clusters seem to break apart, the air feels lighter, and the relief that follows is so strong, so welcome after the sustained discomfort, that it functions as a kind of field amnesia. You stop tracking the pattern because the discomfort has temporarily lifted, and the mind, which is always looking for an exit from sustained alertness, immediately agrees that the danger has passed, that the difficult stretch is behind you, that you can stand down. But the Sentinels track what happens after the false resolution, and what they consistently identify is that the pressure has not cleared. It has compressed. It has pulled back the way a wave pulls back before it returns larger, gathering momentum beneath the surface, while the shoreline above looks temporarily calm. What feels like resolution is often the field taking a breath before it presses harder. The way to recognize false resolution is not by how it feels, but by what it does to your vigilance. If you find yourself relaxing your awareness in a way that feels slightly too eager, if the relief feels slightly too conclusive, if you notice that part of you is working to stay in the relief rather than simply resting in it naturally, pay close attention. That effortfulness in the ease is the marker. True resolution does not require maintenance. False resolution requires you to keep choosing it. True resolution feels neutral and grounded. False resolution feels like permission to stop paying attention, and that permission is precisely what the pressure is waiting for you to grant. The third pattern is energetic drain without visible cause. There are periods in a warning phase where the field begins drawing on reserves the viewer cannot consciously account for. You sleep, but wake unrestored, as if the hours passed, but the recovery they should have delivered was diverted elsewhere. You complete your ordinary tasks, but feel the completion as depletion rather than progress, as if you are spending more than the tasks should cost, and arriving at the end of each day with less than the math should allow. You have conversations, eat, move through your familiar routines, and yet by the end of it, the energy available to you is significantly less than the visible expenditure should explain. This is the field working to process interference that the conscious mind has not yet acknowledged. It is the equivalent of a system running background processes you have not opened and cannot see, consuming resources without your awareness, while the visible surface of your life looks entirely normal to anyone watching from the outside. The Sentinels flag this state not as weakness, but as diagnostic evidence. The drain is not the problem. The drain is the indicator. When your energy output does not match your activity level, when the arithmetic of your day consistently fails to balance, the discrepancy is the pressure. It is the field burning resources to hold together what you have not yet recognized clearly enough to address at the source. The fourth pattern is compass distortion. This is the experience of finding that your sense of direction, your instinct about what to move toward and what to move away from, has become unreliable in ways you cannot fully account for. Decisions you would ordinarily make with clarity begin to feel ambiguous or strangely loaded. Situations that would normally feel obviously uncomfortable begin to feel confusingly acceptable, even attractive. Relationships or environments that carry recognizable warning signals begin to feel strangely neutral, as if the part of you that normally registers the warning has gone quiet or is transmitting on a frequency you can no longer fully receive. This is not ordinary confusion or indecision. This is what happens when the field's navigational capacity is being interfered with at the frequency level. The compass is still present. It is still attempting to function. It is still sending the reading, but the interference is distorting the transmission enough that what arrives in your conscious awareness is a degraded version of the true signal. Close enough to feel like your own instinct, different enough to steer you wrong. And because you are accustomed to trusting your instincts, because the channel feels familiar even when the message it is carrying has been corrupted at a layer below your awareness, you may not immediately recognize that what you are acting on is distorted information. The danger here is not that you cannot sense the signal. It is that you cannot yet tell the signal from the interference that has learned to wear the signal's face. The fifth pattern is threshold crowding. This happens when multiple significant decisions, transitions, or pressure points align within a compressed time window in a way that feels somehow more than circumstantially connected. On the surface, it can appear as ordinary life complexity. There are always multiple things demanding attention. But threshold crowding carries a specific and recognizable quality. It is not merely that many things are happening at once. It is that the combination creates a cognitive and energetic overload that makes it very difficult to see any single element clearly, as if the volume of demands has been arranged to prevent the clarity that any one of them, examined alone, would eventually force. And that overload is not accidental in a compromised field. It is a feature of how interference maintains itself. When you cannot see any one thing clearly because you are overwhelmed by the volume of things demanding attention simultaneously, you begin making decisions from a state of triage rather than clarity. Triage decisions are reactive decisions. They address what is loudest rather than what is most important. They move toward resolution of immediate discomfort rather than alignment with what is actually true. And a field that is already under pressure cannot afford reactive decisions at the precise moment it most needs clear ones. The crowding is the mechanism. The overload is intentional, and recognizing it as a pattern, rather than simply experiencing it as circumstance, is the first act of disrupting it. The sixth pattern is witness collapse. This is the gradual erosion of the internal observer, the part of you that watches your experience without being fully absorbed by it, that maintains a small distance between what you are feeling and what you are concluding about what the feeling means. In a healthy field, this observer functions as the stabilizing intelligence. It is the capacity that allows you to feel fear without becoming only the fear, to sense pressure without concluding that the pressure defines the situation permanently, to notice the warning without mistaking the warning for the outcome. It is the part of you that can say this is difficult without also saying, and therefore everything is lost. But under sustained interference, This observer capacity begins to compress. The distance closes. You stop being someone who is moving through a difficult phase and start becoming the difficulty itself. The pressure stops being something you are experiencing and starts feeling like something you fundamentally are, something about your nature or your worth or your prospects, rather than something moving through your field that has a beginning and an end and a correctable source. And when that collapse occurs, the warning signs around you stop being readable as warnings and start feeling like evidence of a fundamental condition that simply cannot be changed. This is one of the most critical thresholds in a warning phase. It is the point where recognition becomes most necessary and simultaneously most difficult, because the very instrument needed to perform the recognition has been compromised by the pressure it is being asked to read. The seventh pattern is the recognition moment itself, and this is the one the Sentinels want to make very specific, because it is what is happening in your field right now. There will be a moment in this phase, and it may be happening as you receive this sentence, where something in you becomes very still, not relaxed, not resolved, still. It is not the stillness of relief. It is the stillness that precedes clarity, the particular quality of inner quiet that arrives when the part of you that has been managing the pressure in the background finally makes contact with the conscious part of you that has been explaining it away. When those two parts of you stop running in separate channels and align, even for a moment, even imperfectly, there is a stillness. And in that stillness, you will know, not believe, not suspect, not theorize, but know that what you have been calling stress, or coincidence, or a difficult season, or a temporary rough patch, is not any of those things in isolation. It is a pattern. It is a pressure. It is a signal that has been repeating with increasing urgency, not to frighten you, but to find you, to reach the conscious part of you that is capable of responding in a way that the background processing cannot. That moment of stillness is not the end of the warning phase. It is the moment the warning phase becomes workable. A pressure that has been named can be addressed. A signal that is finally recognized can finally be responded to. And a field that is no longer spending its resources on suppression has those resources available for correction. The Arcturian Sentinels are not delivering this transmission to produce anxiety. They are delivering it because anxiety is already present, and what they are offering is not more of it, but something more functional than it. They are offering structure. The ability to see what is pressing against your field, not as a formless cloud of undifferentiated threat, but as a mappable system with identifiable phases, readable markers, and a correction window that is still open tonight. Structure does not eliminate pressure, but it transforms pressure from something you are submerged in to something you can navigate. And navigation requires that you know where you are, which requires that you stop calling where you are by a name that makes it unreadable. What you have been calling a bad few weeks may have been a warning phase with specific patterns and a specific trajectory. What you have been calling overthinking may have been your field attempting to process interference without adequate language for what it was detecting, reaching for the closest available framework and settling for one that almost fits. What you have been calling anxiety may have been the beginning of something that has structure, and structure means it can be read. What can be read can be responded to, and what is responded to before the threshold breaks does not become the disruption that dismissal would have made inevitable. Say this if it is true for you. Say it aloud if you can. I do not dismiss the signs, not because the signs are absolute, not because they guarantee any specific outcome, but because they are real. They are present in your field right now. They are asking to be acknowledged, and the only cost of that acknowledgement is the surrender of the explanation you have been constructing to avoid it. The explanation costs you more energy than the acknowledgement will. It always does. The Sentinels do not require your fear. They require your attention. And tonight, For this window, you are giving it. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this warning phase has already touched your life. It could be repeated pressure, strange coincidence, energetic heaviness, unexplained disruption, or the feeling that something is escalating beneath the surface. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps dismissing the signs around them. And if you are ready to recognize the warning before it escalates, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed Warning. You are recognizing a warning already in motion. And this is only the beginning.